Welcome to today's Psych with Sigmund, where we're going to explore the fascinating concept of psychological priming. I'm your host, Sigmund, and I'll guide you through this engaging topic that reveals how our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are subtly influenced by the world around us. So, what is psychological priming? In simple terms, it's the process by which certain stimuli or environmental cues can activate specific mental associations, memories, or feelings, which in turn affect our perceptions, attitudes, and actions. This concept is essential in psychology because it helps us understand how our minds interact with our environment and how these interactions shape our experiences. The idea of psychological priming has its roots in the early days of psychology, but it wasn't until the 1980s that researchers like John Bargh and Tanya Chartrand began to extensively study this phenomenon. They discovered that people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors could be influenced by subtle cues, such as words, images, or even smells, without them being consciously aware of it. One of the key theoretical frameworks that explains psychological priming is the concept of associative memory. According to this theory, our brains store information in networks of associated concepts, emotions, and experiences. When we encounter a particular stimulus, it can activate these associations, leading to a cascade of related thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. For example, if you smell freshly baked cookies, it might evoke memories of your childhood and make you feel nostalgic. Another important theory that underlies psychological priming is the idea of embodied cognition. This concept suggests that our thoughts and emotions are deeply rooted in our bodily experiences and sensory perceptions. For instance, research has shown that holding a warm cup of coffee can make people more friendly and generous, while holding a cold drink can make them more distant and unfriendly. In one classic study, participants were asked to complete a task that required them to walk to a different room. Unbeknownst to them, the researchers had placed a briefcase or a backpack in the hallway, which served as a subtle cue. The results showed that people who saw the briefcase walked more quickly and purposefully, while those who saw the backpack walked more leisurely. This study illustrates how environmental cues can influence our behavior without us even realizing it. Another interesting example of psychological priming comes from the field of marketing. Researchers have found that stores can increase sales by playing music that is congruent with their brand identity. For instance, a store that wants to appeal to young people might play upbeat and energetic music, while a luxury brand might play classical or jazz music. This demonstrates how carefully crafted environmental cues can influence our purchasing decisions. But psychological priming isn't just limited to consumer behavior, it also has important implications for social interactions and relationships. For example, research has shown that using words or phrases that promote cooperation, such as "we" instead of "I," can foster a sense of unity and shared purpose. This highlights the importance of language in shaping our social perceptions and behaviors. So, how can we apply the concept of psychological priming to our everyday lives? One practical example is to use environmental cues to improve our motivation and productivity. For instance, if you're trying to quit smoking, avoiding places where people smoke or removing smoking-related paraphernalia from your environment could help reduce cravings. Similarly, if you're looking to improve your physical fitness, surrounding yourself with fitness-oriented people or placing exercise equipment in a visible location might motivate you to work out more. In therapeutic settings, understanding psychological priming can inform interventions aimed at modifying maladaptive thought patterns or behaviors. For example, exposure therapy for anxiety disorders often involves gradual exposure to feared stimuli, which can be seen as a form of priming. By carefully controlling the environment and the cues presented, therapists can help clients build confidence and develop more adaptive coping strategies. As we conclude our exploration of psychological priming, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking reflection. Our minds are constantly interacting with our environment, and these interactions shape us in profound ways. By acknowledging the subtle yet powerful influence of priming, we can cultivate greater self-awareness, make more informed decisions, and nurture a deeper understanding of ourselves and those around us. Consider this example. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and you notice that the background music is upbeat and energetic. Without realizing it, this music might be priming you to feel more alert and focused, which could, in turn, influence your productivity or mood. By recognizing the potential impact of such environmental cues, you can make more intentional choices about the environments you inhabit and the stimuli you expose yourself to. In addition, understanding priming can help us develop strategies for mitigating biases and stereotypes. For instance, research has shown that exposure to counter-stereotypical images or stories can reduce implicit bias and promote more inclusive attitudes. By recognizing the power of priming in shaping our social perceptions, we can work towards creating a more empathetic and compassionate society. In conclusion, psychological priming is a fascinating concept that reveals the complex interplay between our minds and our environment. By understanding how subtle cues can influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, we can gain greater insight into ourselves and the world around us. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling a certain way or behaving in a particular manner, take a moment to reflect on the environmental cues that might be shaping your experiences. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of psychological priming. If you want to learn more about this topic or explore other fascinating concepts in psychology, be sure to tune in to future episodes of Psych with Sigmund. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, may your ego find balance between pleasure and reality.